Good morning. Hopefully I can get all this in. I was gonna multi-purpose this video and use it for my mind and body diet challenge group as well, because as this relates to relationships, and I was gonna give some examples of relating to food and exercise. But you know what? I realized that many people will pay for diet programs, diet supplements, these things, that things, other things, but many of us will not spend the time or money for self-improvement, to improve our minds, to improve our relationships. And without to me it just seems like a reality. And the fact that I'm trying to I've spent a lot of time, energy, and money into my knowledge and stuff, and money is just energy, so I want to exchange that at some point for my knowledge, the energy that I'm giving and receiving money. So a lot of people are in the group for free at this moment, but going forward that's going to be a cost thing anyway. And I think a lot of people don't spend a lot of time on relationships is because they always think they're right and it's someone else. Therefore, a little bit of play on words, break the word down. Relationships, how do you relate to someone? Relate, I Googled it. It's how you connect. Relationship is the connection. How do you relate to things, people? And I have a few examples of this because it makes a big difference. Do you relate to your employees the same way you do your kids? You expect the same thing? After you relate with them, do you expect the same relationship? Do you relate with your co-workers the same way you do your spouse or partner? Even material things. I had a 2000 Blazer, and it had a lot of miles on it. It was my only vehicle. I took care of it. I always cleaned it up no matter what was wrong with it. There was different things falling apart, falling off. But because of how I related to that car, I was very grateful for it. It did what it needed to do. There were several things that were wrong with it to stop breaking down on me. And I realized that, you can, even Wayne Dyer says it, you with your energy, you can keep things going. Have you ever noticed when you loan things to people, sometimes it's the same people, but things seem to break with them? It's the energy that's surrounding them. That when I know when I drive my car, I know what's wrong, I know how to brake, I know how to, how fast I can go with it and whatnot. And it's also the energy that I have that keeps it going. And if I lend it to someone else, they don't have that same energy. I mean, if you have a newer car, it's different. There's really nothing wrong with it. So for some of you, I think you can relate to that. So if you have a car that's a piece of shit, that's all you've got, have a different relationship with it. Clean it up, take care of it, and it'll start taking care of you. Definitely. Can you only imagine? Definitely when you do that with people. How do you relate to someone? You have to... I was also, me, I'm a jokester. I like to joke around. I was going to start this video by saying we're going to talk about politics today. And I said, no, I'm just kidding. But I'm actually going to bring politics into this. And I'm sure some of your ears just perked up. Because it's a perfect example of how we relate to one another, therefore creating relationships. As far as politics is concerned, there's two sides, right? Just like everything else. Just like I always say, there's always two sides to everything. Some people are way to the right, some are way to the left, and some are down the middle. And I honestly believe that some of those people, either far right or far left, they really have genuine concern. They really think they're doing the right thing. They really think that they have other people's best interest at heart. But they're coming from a certain place of how they relate to the world and that's what they're putting out. Sometimes you have to use a benchmark and a litmus test to see, what other people are thinking and feeling. It's not everybody can get along. There's people out there that are button pushers. They like to push buttons to get you going. You have to stay in a good place and figure out how you're going to relate to that. You have relationships with everything. Anything you're connected to on a consistent basis, you have a relationship with it. You'll have a different relationship with workers, co-workers, employees, friends, family. You'll have friends that you could hang out with and have a good time, but you couldn't work with. You'll have co-workers that are great workers, but you probably couldn't hang out with them. So you base how you relate to them in that relationship, and that's how that works with them. A lot of times we get off track, and I see this so many times in relationships. There's so much animosity. Instead of relating to that person and trying to understand perhaps why they may be doing or not doing what they're doing, we mimic. We let them push our buttons. My son is one of the smartest people I know. He's a button pusher. He loves to push buttons. Even he just likes to debate. He just likes to get you go, however you want to say it. My buddy does it to me every now and then. He's like, I just wanted to see how far I can get you to go. We have people in our lives, even if it's your spouse or your partner, and things have happened over the years, and because I hear this a lot. Well, she did this. Well, if I did that, this is how she would act. So this is what I'm going to do. It's like, wow, it sounds like a circle. Well, she did it, so this is how she would act. I'm not going to act like I would. I'm going to act like she would, try to prove a point, and go back and forth. It's like, where does it end? Where does that stop? Don't lower yourself down to that. Do what's right. For an example, the other day was my oldest daughter's birthday. And my youngest daughter asked me, should I tell her happy birthday? They're not really close. They're 12 years apart. And I said, sure you should. She said, well, she wouldn't tell me happy birthday. I'm like, well, there's the saying, 2 wrongs don't make a right. I'm like, you do what you think is right. You obviously think it's right to tell her happy birthday because you asked me. Tell her happy birthday and be done with it. Who knows what her older sister, maybe her older sister's saying, well, she never tells me happy birthday. So now that might have started a chain reaction in the reverse way, and now she'll start telling her happy birthday. Who knows? If you think something's right, do it. Don't do something just because somebody did something to you. I don't know if that came out right. Don't do something that you wouldn't normally do just because somebody pushed your button. Have you ever seen those? I don't know if they still do it. I haven't seen one in a while. Pekingese dog, the little Pekingese, and maybe some other dogs do it. When you touch their tail, they would spin around and chase their tail, right? So what would people do? People would go touch their tail. Now imagine this. Imagine if that dog could resist the temptation to chase its tail, let's say consistently 3 times, when a certain person touched their tail. After the 3rd time and the dog didn't react, that person would say, well, the dog doesn't do it anymore, and the person would stop. Point is, if someone's pushing your button, people love consistency. So if you react a certain way and you blow up and you have a trigger and they push that button, try to resist the temptation to act the way they normally expect you to, and they'll eventually stop because they're not getting the reaction anymore. Now, here's something I shared with somebody yesterday, because I had to do the same thing, and I still do it to this day as I was growing and trying to evolve and get better at things. How do we know what we don't know, right? A lot of successful people had mentors, gurus, someone they could contact. every day on a regular basis. You know, a life coach, a coach, or whatever. And, you know, hey, this happened, how should I have handled it? Sometimes we don't have that. So what I did, since I was aware, you don't always think about it, but when I found myself in a situation, whatever it is you're trying to change, if what you've been doing has not been working for you, right? And you're wanting to change, because nothing changes if nothing changes. If you do what you've always done, you're always going to get what you always got, right? So you need a pattern interrupt. You need to change your way of doing things, your way of thinking. So when something happens, you know, there's all these cliches out there. If something bad can happen, it'll happen. Murphy's Law, blah, blah, blah. You know, it's like, stop saying it. Again, it goes back to being aware. What story you're telling yourself? What do you want? Focus on that. So if something comes up and your knee-jerk reaction is to say this or do this, take a deep breath and say, wait a minute, okay, that's what I normally do, and normally I don't like the results I get, so let's try something different. Let's not react the way I would normally react. Be aware, observe the situation, observe yourself, observe the person that you're dealing with, see how they react, see if it's a favorable reaction, and then start to change your habit. I'll give you another example. When I was a little kid, I was pretty honest, and if I didn't do something, I would say I didn't do it. Well, it seemed like I got interrogated a lot until I would say I did it. But I was always the one, if there was a problem at the playground, we'll just leave. You leave, even though if I didn't do anything. Well, there was one or two times that I was guilty of whatever I did. I admitted it. And my dad said, well, you were a big man. You admitted to it. You know, just don't let it happen again. A light bulb went off. I was like, holy shit. If I didn't do something and I said I didn't do it, I still got accused as if I did it. Which that happened to me later on in a relationship. Either way. So I started admitting to things that I didn't do, because I saw that it was pretty consistent that I got off the hook. It was like, okay, well, just don't let that happen again. So, you know, for whatever it's worth, some people are too proud. Some people are too proud to admit they've even made a mistake. But I just learned that was the path of least resistance for me. And it worked, so I did it. And I hope you don't take that example out of context. I'm just saying, sometimes you have to change your habits. Don't let people push your buttons. You know, would you like if someone judged you by who you were 2 or 3 years ago, if you've changed, if you become a changed person? No, you wouldn't. So don't judge them as well. Sometimes we project. Sometimes we think that person is still that mean, nasty person, and we hear what we want to hear coming out of them. Again, being aware, what story you're telling, and some of it you got to ask yourself, what difference does it make? That person doesn't control me. That whatever they think of me is what they think of me. If you're in a room with 1,000 people, you have 1,000 different reputations, because different people see you differently. So don't let that affect you. Don't let people push your buttons. Be aware, be in control, learn how to relate to people. One of my favorite sayings, which I am stalling and hesitating because I'm trying to think of it at the moment, is seek to understand. You know, the old saying, put yourself in someone else's shoes. It's not easy. Example I can give you from Stephen Covey's The 7 Habits of Successful People. He's on a train, a subway in New York. He's sitting there quietly. A man comes on with 3 of his kids. Kids are running around being all loud and stuff. And You know, he finally looks over at the man and says, you know, maybe you think you should get control of your kids. And the man looks at him and says, yeah, you know, we just left the hospital. They just lost their mother. And perhaps this is the way they're dealing with it. You never know someone's story, right? So don't judge. It's everybody has their own path and their own journey. How you relate to someone or something and the relationships you have will make a big difference in your life. Allow people to be who they are. Don't let them push your buttons. And that's how you decide who comes inside your inner circle. For some reason, I think I got most of it out. I'm sure I'll think of something else later that I wanted to say, but I'll put it in another video. I love you guys, and I'll see you later.